I walked through the decaying streets, the sound of my footsteps the only company I had. The once thriving city felt like a forgotten memory. The familiar skyline of towering skyscrapers now seemed oppressive, looming overhead like silent sentinels, blocking out the last rays of sunlight. The wind held through the cracked windows of abandoned stores, carrying with it the scent of decay, dirt, and something else. Something unnatural. It wasn't always like this. There had been a time when this city was full of life, bustling with people from all walks of life. The sound of children laughing, the hum of traffic, the buzz of excitement in the air. Now, there was only silence. The occasional gust of wind rattled the broken windows, sending a cascade of discarded paper and petals into the air. It was like the city had been drained of its soul, its heartbeat silenced by an enemy no one had seen coming. I kicked a handful of flowers as I walked, the soft petals drifting to the ground. For a moment, the sight of them stirred something inside me, a bitter reminder of everything we had lost. I had once marveled at flowers, their beauty, their fragrance. Now, they were just a cruel reminder of what had happened. Of how everything had changed in such a short time. I had been walking for days, weeks. Time didn't matter anymore. Everything had been lost in the blink of an eye. The world as we knew it had crumbled, and with it, all the things that once seemed so important. The loud, chaotic city had turned into a desolate wasteland, and I was just one more lonely soul wandering through it, searching for something that would never be found. I had once cursed the noise. The constant drone of traffic, the blaring horns, the endless stream of people all moving in different directions, lost in their own lives. I had longed for peace, for silence. But now, silence felt like a curse. It was a vacuum, pulling everything into its emptiness. No more laughter. No more chatter. No more warmth. Just the cold, oppressive stillness of a world that had stopped turning. Turning a corner, I made my way down an alley that led me toward my destination. My breath caught in my chest as I spotted a familiar street sign, the one that marked the turn toward the apartment. My heart quickened in my chest. I reached out and ran my hand down the pole, the faded sticker on the back catching my attention. It was a silly little thing, a remnant from another time, a time before everything changed. Guess what? Chicken butt, it read, the bright, childish words in odd contrast to the grim reality that now surrounded me. I couldn't help but smile at it. It was one of those little things that had once been so normal, so trivial, yet now felt like a relic from a past life. The city had fallen so fast, so unexpectedly. No one really knew how it had started. There were rumors, stories of a new virus, an alien invasion, a rogue government experiment, but nothing had been concrete. In the end, it didn't matter. The truth didn't change the fact that everything was over. I remembered the day the news first broke, that little blip in the media about a new species discovered in the Amazon, a plant with the ability to merge with human tissue. It sounded so absurd, so far-fetched. Who would have thought that something so seemingly harmless could destroy the world? But that was how it always went, wasn't it? The things you didn't pay attention to, the things you dismissed, turned out to be the ones that would ruin everything. By the time anyone realized how bad it was too late. The infection spread quickly, silently, insidiously. People didn't die, they were transformed. The flowers bloomed inside their bodies, slowly taking over, merging with them until they were no longer human. Their bodies became little more than hosts for the plants. The flowers fed on them, spreading out, taking root wherever they could. And once the infection started, there was no stopping it. It wasn't a disease you could fight with guns or barricades. It was part of the world now. Part of everything. The flowers grew, and with them, the end of humanity. I could still remember the panic in the early days. People fighting over supplies, desperate to protect themselves, but it was futile. The disease didn't care about your guns, your food, or your shelter. It was everywhere, in the air, in the earth, waiting to claim whoever came close enough. The memories of those first days still haunted me. The chaos, the noise, the screaming. It all seemed so distant now, like it had happened in another life. I had been so sure I could make it. So sure I could find her, bring her to safety. But I hadn't. I was too late. As I neared the familiar street, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long, jagged shadows across the empty street. I squinted against the orange light, the rays filtering through the broken windows and shattered storefronts. I couldn't help but think of what it used to be like. The families that lived in these buildings. The children that used to play on these streets. They were all gone now. The world had become a graveyard, a place where life once thrived but now lay dormant, swallowed by the ever-encroaching vines. I reached the apartment building, the one I had been walking toward for so long. My legs were sore, my body aching from the endless hours of walking, but I had no choice. There was nowhere else to go. The city was a maze of streets and alleys, and I had to get to her. To find her. To make sure, that maybe, just maybe, there was something left. I stopped in front of the building, staring up at the small window above the florist shop. The sight made my heart sink. There, tangled in the vines that spilled from the window, was a skeleton. The flowers had overtaken everything, white blooms wrapped around the bones, entangling the body in their tendrils. And hanging from the skeleton's neck was a necklace. I recognized it immediately, even from this distance. It was hers. The rose pendant swayed gently in the breeze, as if mocking me. I dropped to my knees, the weight of the loss crushing me. My throat tightened, my vision blurred with tears. I had promised her. I had told her I would be there, that I would come back. But I hadn't. I had failed. I screamed, the sound ripping from my chest, raw and ugly. My fists pounded the pavement, each strike a futile attempt to push away the unbearable pain. The ground beneath me felt cold and unyielding, and I collapsed onto my side, my body shaking with sobs. I had failed her. I had failed the one person who had ever meant anything to me. As I lay there, curled up in the street, my mind began to drift. I could feel the itchiness in my skin, the slight tightness in my throat. I knew what was happening. It was only a matter of time before the flowers inside me began to take root. I had been exposed too long. The infection was already spreading, slowly but surely. I didn't care anymore. The world had already died. I was just a passenger, waiting for the inevitable. The flowers would claim me too. They would turn me into one of them. And then, maybe, I would finally be free. Free to be with her again. Maybe, in the end, that was all that mattered. I rolled onto my back, the backpack digging painfully into my spine. I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. I stared up at the sky, watching as the last light of the day began to fade, the darkness creeping in like an unwelcome guest. Soon, I would be gone, lost to the world, swallowed by the flowers. And maybe, just maybe, I would find her again. The one person who had ever truly mattered. Before everything ended.